Everybody, how you doing? Welcome, Sworn Club members. This is the inaugural edition of Beer with Brian. So Beer with Brian is a very informal hangout that I've done in the past, and we've brought it over to the club. So this is less the hype selling Brian, and it's more the hangout with you, Brian. And I totally want to encourage you guys to ask any questions that you'd like to ask. Full disclosure, Beer with Brian today is brought to you by water. little early for beer for me, but I'm sure it'll be coming. So Beer with Brian, first things is thanks everybody for being Sworn Club members. So if you backed Cataclysmic Majesty, you automatically got to be in the club. We used all the free bonus items for you to get your physical rewards, and then we have a number of other things for you to have to get the full range of benefits for the club. Please go and sign up for an account. They'll give you 10% off on your birthday and other cool things, including an advantage being able to get to everything on our store 1 hour before the general public, before it launches. So enough of that business. Also on club stuff, you could expect 2 private lives a month. I will do Beer with Brian on a monthly basis, and other Coffin people will be appearing on these lives, Mike McLean, Joel Gomez, and others. And what else on the club? The first club merchandise, which we'll be offering on a quarterly basis, will be coming up soon. And it just has to be based on this amazing image by Mike Crome and colored by Sanju Nivinjun. If you could believe it, we're already hard at work on what does Club Year 2 look like. So working on that as well. So part of Beer with Brian is questions and answers. And Jimmy Coffin's with me today, and he's going to take a look. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Just in the last hour, I did a live to show people what's going on with Sacrificial Annihilation. And it's amazing the amount of work behind the scenes that goes into a project like this. Like by the time Coffin Comics gets to this point, truly all we have to do is print. So that means all the work has been done up until this point. And I actually find myself, as we sit, what I'm working on are Coffin Comics Shop exclusives for a very surprise late September promotion that ties into an event we call Crucial Con. So we did Crucial Con last year, and the premise is really simple. It's like, what the heck is Crucial? What's coming up? What can we show that's coming way ahead? And so Crucial Con is going to have some fun qualities, and I'm working on something for just that event, something that's all new, but something that ties into Sacrificial Annihilation. And then, if you could believe it, I am putting the finishing touches on the overall plan for Wargasm. And I have all the covers in but 2, and the plan's set. Diego Bernard is deep into the illustration. You know, it's funny, if you came this time last year, well, maybe, yeah, last September, we knew we were doing it. And then schedule-wise, probably January, February, Christmas time, January, February, Mike and I wrote it, put the finishing touches on it. And now that Diego finished not only Sacrificial Annihilation, but a cool surprise that's going to happen during Sacrificial, he's hard at work, deep into it. So that is a 48-page story. It has 2 endings, as you know, and so far, if you don't know, you got a chance to vote on who wins. It's you guys and gals choose. So it's either going to be Lady Death or Hell, which will win this fight. And we actually have written both, and Diego will draw both. And this upcoming Lady Death Sacrificial Annihilation will be the final chance to vote. So people have already voted for who they'd like to win during Cataclysmic Majesty, during La Muerta Onslaught, and now during Sacrificial. We will tally the votes, and that is who will win. So those are some of the things that are going on. Now, believe it or not, because we're a publisher, a lot of time has been spent. So we brought on, let me back up a minute. We brought on Marshall Dillon as our veteran letterer as managing editor last November. And he, in a sense, has been in training for that position. But one of the good things that he's brought to the company is a renewed sense of trying to always push forward faster. So he is pretty rigorous in having me think of the publishing schedule way ahead. So here we are in 2021, but I could tell you for sure that we're pretty deep into the stories for 2022, and we're plotting 2023, and we really know where we're going. And then 2024, because 2024 is a very big year for us. It's the 30th anniversary of Lady Death. And I've already promised it's the return of a major villain, the first villain, Satanus. So Jimmy Coffin, you wouldn't mind, see if there's any questions anybody has. If you don't, I'll keep talking. That's what I do.
So one question is, what does your day look like as a publisher of Coffin Comics?
So here's how my day goes. And I think most people here can attest to it. I probably work on coffin-related stuff 7 days a week. I'm also a business owner. So my accountabilities range from primarily accountable to the editorial process, everything from making the book to making sure it goes to the printer. I have a part in all that. I work with Jimmy Coffin in marketing specifically. Then I have a business owner accountability. So that's everything from making sure, you know, human resources is together, et cetera. Although the role of human resources is Francisca Pulido. So here's an average day. I probably wake up anywhere between 5 or 6 o'clock. Naturally, just happens. And I get up. I already pressed the button. Coffee's already going to be made. I'm drinking my coffee. If the weather permits, I go outside, catch up on the news, and drink coffee. And Francisca and I are usually sort of just ruminating on what's coming up inside the day. We actually treat that first part of the day as like it's just another fun part of the day. We're kind of ease into the day, because once I get going fast. So that's one of the treats we have, is kind of easing into the day. Then we'll walk the dogs, and I'm probably answering emails. You know, let's say we have projects right now in China, the Lady Death Omnibus and the Lady Death Majestic Series statue. When I wake up, I'm getting end of the day communications from China. I think they're 11 or 13 hours ahead of us. So I'm start to answer that. I'll shower, I'll formally start the day at around 9 o'clock. So my day is constructed where the first 3 hours of my day, 9 to 12, are the important things that I need to do for the day. And they're usually of a project nature. So that might mean anything from writing something new, outline for something new. Yesterday, I used it to proof the omnibus, the physical copy of it. So real important stuff. I might also use it for some strategy and planning. And then I am a completely routine human being. I adore it. And at noon sharp, 99% of the time, I'm having lunch. And in the sad but true department, I have the same thing for lunch every day, but I like it every day. So it's just exactly who I am, make lunch. Oh, I should mention too that Francisca and I both, interestingly, work from home, and I go into HQ where other people work later in the day. And the reason is I kind of require 100% quiet, which is kind of funny because Francisca and I have our offices next to each other, and she's loud when she talks. And I just require utter quiet, to do what I do. So I have lunch. I might be back in at 12:30, or I could go till 1 o'clock puttering around, and then I'm back in. And I'm doing administrative stuff in the afternoon, so I might be returning calls. I kind of relate to the morning as like creating stuff and doing super important stuff that's strategic in nature. And then in the afternoon, I view it as I'm answering emails, although I'm answering emails all day. And then I'm administrating throughout the day. Our day at HQ historically goes to around 5 o'clock. So what'll happen is I'll work from my home office in the afternoon, historically travel to HQ, depending on what's required of me, at 3:30 to be here at 4 o'clock to sign, answer things. Last week I was signing the La Muerta Kickstarter, so I came in early and just signed about 2 or 3 hours every day all week. And then we're kind of technically knocking off at around 5 o'clock. And what that really translates to is I then go home again, but I am very likely to be approving covers throughout the night, stretch goals. It just so happens that our graphic designers, Mike Flippin, works largely at night and on weekends, so I'm proofing stuff then. And then Robert Z, who's admin on our Sworn Nation channel, longtime OG, dear friend, also our graphic designer, and he's turning in stuff at night as well. So I probably go, depending on level of enthusiasm, till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, proofing stuff. Sometimes I'm gassed out and I won't. And then generally the premise would be we have weekends off. But again, I get a lot of I get a lot of writing done on the weekends. Like this particular weekend, I will be taking an outline arrived at by Mike McLean for Lady Satanis, and I'll be fleshing that out on my first session, my 9 to 12 session on Saturday. And then I'll be looking at any number of things, proofing things. So that's kind of what it's like. And particularly since we haven't been traveling to conventions and we have no plans of traveling to conventions in 2021. So that is an average day. And it might sound boring or monotonous, but I actually find it completely exciting. Every time I get a piece of art in, it's fantastic. So I'll wake up and it's like, oh my God, there's a new piece by Sun K, Mike Chrome, Eric Basaluda. I mean, it's like living the dream. So yeah, don't feel sorry for the guy who's like in the room. I believe it very strongly in incremental improvement. So by sticking to a routine and always improve incrementally, I could kind of see the advances. So that's kind of what I like to do. So hopefully that answers that particular question. And then I rinse and repeat. Now, there's different days. I'll come into the office. I'm doing lives like I'm doing now. I just finished doing a preview. Sometimes we go late when we're launching Kickstarters. That's fun too. Frequently, at the end of the week, I'm sitting here at the Coffin Bar. Frequently on a Friday, everyone hangs out and we probably sort of like toast the week and we get ready for the weekend, probably spend a half hour drinking alcohol. So that hopefully that answers your question. I don't know if there's any other questions, but I'm happy to answer.
So what's in your, what are you currently reading? What's in your pull list?
Okay, so what I'm currently reading is, and we'll go through it. I'm reading Captain America, which is issue number 30 comes to a close. I found this run very boring, but I'm a longtime Captain America fan, so I have weathered a lot of storylines. There's a new storyline called United States of Captain America. First issue came out. I'm intrigued by the premise. We're going to see how it goes with that one. There's a new Captain America annual that just came out. I have it. I just haven't read it. And let's see, what else is on my pull list? Probably a whole plethora. I am reading Walking Dead Deluxe. I read Walking Dead when it came out, but what I like about the Deluxe is all this cool back matter. There's like a lot of stuff written by Kirkman about how he was feeling at the time. And the comic book that's really knocking me out right now is Barbaric by Vault. I read the first issue and, you know, I've very rarely had a Vault comic, but I saw this title and I picked it up out of curiosity and I was completely knocked out by everything to do with this comic book. The writing, the art, the color, the lettering, the packaging, the design. I thought it was just top shelf. I'm like, where have these people been my entire life? So I did a post yesterday and just said, go get it. I'm always reading. So I just finished, or I'm in the middle of an anthology that's all about apocalyptic scenarios. So I'm reading that. I'm a big fan of a thing called the Jack Kirby Collector, which is published by a company called Tomorrows. And I just got a hardcover in where it's a deep dive into Jack Kirby's Fourth World, which, I mean, honestly, I'm an acolyte of Jack Kirby. I worship at the altar of Jack Kirby. So anything I could read Jack Kirby. So this is really fun. So it's looking at New Gods, Forever People, Mr. Miracle, Jimmy Olsen, those particular books, which his run on them are just, that's the standard for me. So those are some of the things that I'm reading. And I'm always kind of rereading. You guys do that too? I'm rereading. So been rereading Commandy. And let's see what else. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I'm reading. So that answers that question. And it's funny because I have like stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of stuff to read. What I probably have to do is organize them so I know. Because it's funny because I was just kind of going, there's a thing called Humble Bundle. I don't know if you've heard of it, but sometimes they do digital comic books and you could just pay $15 and get like 100 image comics. So I did that. So I have this stack of image PDFs to read as well. So I got a lot of good stuff to read. I'm happy to answer any other questions people might have.
Is it true about the corn dog?
It's 100% true about the corn dog. You got to stand for something in this world. You got to just stand for something. And somewhere along the line, I realized when I went to the Arizona State Fair a long time ago, I realized I've never had a corn dog. And as opposed to giving into my whims and my desires, I decided I'm going to make a stand and my life is going to mean something. And what it's going to mean is at the end of the day, I never ate a corn dog. And if you saw my last will and testament, right now it says that's going to say on my gravestone, he never ate a corn dog. So you could stand for that. You could stand for whatever you want to stand for in this world. That's what I stand for. I've never eaten a corn dog. I'm never going to do it. Here's the thing. It's not like I wouldn't like a corn dog. I'm sure I'd like a corn dog. I like hot dogs. But when you realize something magical like that in your life, I never ate a corn dog. I'm gonna ride that out to the end. So that's the truth. You got to stand for something in this world.
So why Night of the Living Dead? Why is that so?
So Night of the Living Dead. When I was a child, as early as I could remember, my mother was a horror movie fan. And some of my earliest memories is hanging out with my mom, watching horror films. So truly the earliest memory I have is I kind of remember my mom laying in the couch and I was sort of like in the curl of her legs, and we're watching The Hideous Sun Demon, which if I remember correctly, it was a black and white and it was made by a movie studio called AIP, American International Pictures. And this movie terrified me. Although, you know, in retrospect, as an adult, you look, it's not that scary, but I was scared by it. And somehow, although I was scared by horror movies, this connection between my mother and I over a shared interest in horror films was just kind of a way of us kind of relating. So if you could believe it, it was sometime, I think it was 1968, the movie had just come out, and my mother took myself and my friend Brian Custer to go see the movie Night of the Living Dead in the drive-in. So that would put me, 1968 puts me 7 years old. So my mother takes a 7-year-old. My mother's the classic mother who took her kid to the horror films all the time. So I saw Night of the Living Dead at that age. And here's the thing. That movie, when I saw it as a kid, we saw it at the drive-in. If I could crawl through the back of the car, I would, because it freaked me out. And I don't know what it is about that attraction, revulsion with horror films, but that's how it works sometimes. And that, I feel I could probably talk for hours on Night of the Living Dead, and I've seen it literally hundreds of times. In fact, I am counting down the days where I rewatch it again in October. Like October, I'm going to watch like my top 20 horror films all over again and love them all. But what I think it's incredible about Night of the Living Dead is the filmmaking is remarkable. The situation is catastrophic. There are layers of horror that if you think about it in the context of time when the movie was released, were all first time, right? So the classic claustrophobic environment, everyone's stuck in a farmhouse. A brother pulls his sister out amongst the dead. And remember, back then, zombies, Romero helped, I don't give him complete credit, but he helped usher in this concept of the modern science-based zombie. Up until that point, there was the ZOMBI, which was voodoo-based. There's a couple of movies and stories that presaged Night of the Living Dead. I'd go so far as to say a movie called Invisible Invaders, a story called I Am Legend, which was made into the book or the movie Last Man on Earth. I think these are kind of echoes. And then this movie, Night of the Living Dead, they were actually never called zombies. They were called ghouls. And the idea that your neighbor could turn and become this thing. I also think the soundtrack is incredible. I have every version of the soundtrack you can have because I just think it's super effective. And then things like, you know, Karen Cooper attacks and kills her mother, then her father. I mean, it's just an apocalyptic situation. And then, of course, the hero, Ben. Let's talk about Ben. First of all, I like Ben, but Ben was wrong the whole time, right? So Harry Cooper is the obnoxious guy who tells everybody we got to get in the basement. Ben is the charismatic leader, hero kind of guy who says, no, we got to stay up here and keep our options open. But in the end, who really was right? In the end, they had to go to the basement. Ben had to retreat to the basement. And I love that. These people arguing and they cannot get it together. And like, who's worse, the ghouls outside or the people inside? Like, all that stuff now has become common in horror films. But this was the movie that did it with no remorse, a straight face, eating of human flesh. I mean, it was crazy. And then, of course, the bravery of the ending. The bravery of the ending when, Ben looks out because he hears somebody and then he's shot and he's killed. I mean, it's so annihilating, and it's such a nihilistic ending, but it's, I mean, for me, that movie's just, it's got it all. It's never quite been reproduced to that degree. I mean, there's been effective horror films, but to me, that's the one. We could do like several beers with Brian just on that topic. I don't know if anybody has any further questions. I'm always happy to answer. But yeah, Night of the Living Dead just continues to be my favorite.
So any stories, Stephen Hughes, anything, favorite stories of Stephen?
There's so many stories about Stephen. I mean, the first thing that flashed to my mind was that Steve and I would go to conventions, right? And I remember the first time maybe going to a convention in New York, and we're going to get coffee. So, you know, he gets his, I get mine, and then he starts putting a sugar in. Then he put another sugar in. Then he put another sugar in. In the end, the guy put in 5 sugars in a coffee. That was just average. I'm like, what are you doing putting 5 sugars in a coffee? Here's another story, and this is probably a little more of a serious nature. And I mean, I could just tell you so many stories about Stephen and collaborating with Stephen, but this is more of a serious nature. We were at San Diego Comic-Con one of the years, something 76, 77, 96, 97, and we're playing music really, really loud. And I'm reading, we're playing music loud. It's all kinds of Rob Zombie, everything you'd expect. When I started playing, the song that came up was Body Count, I think. And then in Body Count, the N-word kept coming up. You know, M-word kept coming up. The N-word kept coming up. And then, you know, Stephen's, what did he say exactly? But it was something to the effect of, he said, you know, I don't think that's right. And I said, but you know, isn't it his, but it's his words. He could say it. And he's like, but you got to know, Brian, it just doesn't make it right. And it really, really, really stuck with me. The use of that particular word, which I don't use, I haven't used, but you know, even in popular culture, how it was used and Steve's point of view on the matter, and it was paradigm shifting for me. So it's like, yep, I get it. And so what I understand about that word in particular is it's, first of all, it's not my word to use. And culturally, other people can adopt it in culture. But he woke me up, again, not that I used it, but just we were having it in music that was playing in the background. He just said, you know, just because they're doing it doesn't make it right. So I really heard what he said about that. So I don't know if that's the story that you were expecting, but on the lighter side of a Stephen story was the cover of Lady Death #1. So Stephen had done another image where it was a full body shot of Lady Death. She was sort of leaning over, and believe it or not, I might actually have that sketch around somewhere, but I didn't feel it was impactful. And Stephen was always a good sport about my drive in art direction. He was open to it. And man, I really wish I could tell you like what was the conversation that generated the cover, but he was visiting us where we were living in Southern California. And that one cover idea wasn't quite hitting. And then he knocked out that Lady Death cover like in 6 hours, you know, soup to nuts. And, you know, we looked at it and we're like, that's the one. Yeah, I personally have a very strong feeling about #1 covers that are really iconic, sort of like Evil Ernie. It's that head-on, full body shot. You really know what that character is. It's really impactful. Kind of trying to get the same feeling for that Lady Death cover. And so, you know, that design came up. He executed it, and like boom, it just 9 months later, it was like all over the place. So those are just a couple of stories about Stephen. I could probably keep going. Love taking your questions. Thank you.
All right, time for one more. So early chaos.
Yeah.
So you don't have chaos anymore.
Right.
Will you be able to get it back, or what's the scoop on that?
So here's the scoop on Chaos Comics. So when I was running Chaos Comics, I was a young business person and kind of particularly ignorant about finance. So we got into financial trouble due to my own mismanagement, and ultimately did what's called a business bankruptcy, Chapter 7 bankruptcy for dissolution. And that was in August of 2002. So what went along with that was all the characters except Lady Death, and that was just the cost. So I don't have any rights to those characters, and they were bought by one party, and then that party ultimately sold it to the comic book company called Dynamite. Now, the comic book company called Dynamite is owned by a guy who in the 90s was my friend, a guy named Nick Barucci. And, as we sit today, I don't know that we have a meaningful communication back and forth. And I've generally just kind of moved on from the idea of any kind of possibility of it ever coming home. And I'm very settled with it. I am not the sort of human being who would work for hire on his own creations. I would not do that. And I must admit, like, my feelings were hurt that I was never quite invited to work on the material. But here's where it gets weird. If I was invited to work on the material, I wouldn't have. So figure that out. It's complicated. So, I mean, I do hold that those characters that I created were my children, but the way I relate to it now is they got in a divorce, they have another father, and we no longer talk, and they've changed dramatically. So, I don't really look behind for stuff like that. And that's sort of life. Life is, there is my business and creative life laid bare. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So I would say in that case, it's one under the bridge. What's fascinating is, as we sit, Coffin Comics has been in existence longer than the Classic Chaos Comics ever was. Classic Chaos Comics was 9 years, 8 months, something like that, perhaps. And then Coffin here, this August we'll have our 14th anniversary. And I think that Dynamite has owned the Chaos characters longer than I did, other than having created them and having them in my head for years. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying that I don't personally foresee us getting together on anything. They're going to do what they're going to do, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I hope that's okay with you. So time for another one.
Oh yeah. So Arthur Sudan.
Yeah.
How did you meet him? How did he do a Lady Death cover?
How did I meet Arthur? Boy, I got to go back. You have to understand that in the early 00s, I would actually make a living simply going to comic book conventions, bringing my wares, signing, making a couple bucks. And simply somewhere along the line, I met Arthur. And we actually got along really well. He was an East Coaster. I'm a former East Coaster. And we would sometimes, like at the end of a day, get together, go have a steak dinner or something like that. So I've had and this is going back, I mean, honestly, this has got to be going back to the mid 00s. And yeah, so I mean, I've had maybe a dozen dinners with Arthur when he's come out this way. We've taken him out to pizza when we are co-owners of Tucson Comic-Con. We've had him as a guest. So, it's funny, for all the years I know him, I didn't ask him until about a year ago, where I asked him and he said yes. So one other little piece of a footnote in history is I made a movie called The Graves, which we shot in 08, and we marketed and promoted and eventually sold to After Dark Films as part of the 8 Films to Die For. And Arthur did the movie poster for that, for the initial sale. So, I mean, that is the one piece that he had done up until that point. So that's my Arthur Sudan story. And I'm very happy that he graced us with this cover, and I'm real excited. So, yeah. I guess, a couple other, I'm still willing to take one more. If you guys have another one, hopefully this has been fun.
Oh, speaking of the new Kickstarter, what's your favorite piece?
Wow. Okay. See, this is very difficult. My favorite piece on the Kickstarter, it's really just the sum total of the work. Like, I look at all of it. When I'm presenting this to you, it's all of it. For me, it's every single solitary component plus how we present it to you over the course of the entire campaign. It's a very immersive experience for me. So I'm everything from the initial instigator of the story, the co-writer. I shepherd all the work. I'm art directing it. But then I am part of the marketing and the promotion and unfolding the entire campaign over the course of the 30 days. So there isn't a particular piece. But I got to tell you, I'm really, really enjoying telling the story. And I'm really enjoying that people are enjoying it, because I actually saw it as we were embarking upon these last couple of stories as a big creative risk. After Lady Death Chapter 7, which takes place in hell, you could say is firmly rooted in dark fantasy, starting with Chapter 9 to the present, I think we've been operating a little bit more in the genre of superhero, anti-hero. And that's new for us. And I just wanted to see if people were interested in taking that ride with us. So Sacrificial Annihilation is certainly the peak of this particular era. I actually do not foresee us presenting a story of this scale again until about 2024. We're going to there'll be a reset next year and a reorganization of where it's going after the outcome of this story and the outcome of Wargasm, because it's a monumental effort, and you'll see behind the scenes as we unveil the campaign all the other stuff that's part of the surprises. So I think all of it, but in particular the story. So I still really want to take one more question.
All right. People like the food. Pickles.
I love
Why
pickles.
are you obsessed with pickles? What is this?
Okay. I love the taste of sour food. I don't know what to say. Like, I also like kimchi. Right now at home, we have like beet sauerkraut. I just like stuff in that kind of taste range. I don't know about you guys. So if I could have a pickle, man, a good quality pickle, I'll put it on anything. But yeah, some of you guys and gals might see out there that I'll put pickle juice in whiskey, called whiskey pickle. And that's dangerous, man, because the pickle juice annihilates the taste of the whiskey. Before you know it, you just had too many and you got in trouble. But yeah, I just love the taste of sour that comes with pickles and everything like it. Kimchi, sauerkraut. I just love it. You like it too, right, Jimmy Coffin?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Coffin's behind the wheels of steel here, and he likes it too. So I like what I like, and I like pickles. I probably have pickles 5 out of 7 days a week. Because, I don't know what people have for snacks, like, cake and stuff, but I just have pickle, just have an apple or a pickle, something like that.
What if I told you a corn dog tastes like a pickle?
Well, I have an estimate of what a corn dog tastes like. It's like a hot dog inside a cake. So I could kind of guess it. And again, it's not like I detest it. Like, I could tell you, I detest the taste of raw celery. I just don't like the taste. Cooked, fine. It's part of mirepoix, fine. But raw, no. I don't have an issue with the taste of a corn dog. I just realized I didn't have one. And you got to stand for something in your life. So I stand for never, right? I stand for never eating a corn dog in my life. It's that simple. I'm still willing to answer questions.
Okay, let's say that's about what we got for right now.
All right, folks. Well, I'll tell you a couple of little suggestions too. So here's Pulido's picks. If you're on Netflix right now, there's a cool vampire movie called, I think it's called Blood Moon Rising. Is that what it's called? It's about a woman and her son are on a transatlantic flight from Germany to the States, and there is a terrorist attack, and that gives rise to vampires. So check it out. It's a lot of fun, and they're like mean, nasty vampires, kind of like near dark type vampires or 30 Days of Night vampires. The effects are really insane. A couple other things. Mike McLean and I are deep into production on the writing of Latest Chapter 15. We will reveal that title in September during Crucial Con, and we are going to be introducing a very interesting villain in that one. And then in the short, a couple things. I want to give some shout outs to people, a couple people who are really great inside our culture. So a big up to Ambassador Bob Conister. Bob's admin on Sworn Nation, along with Robert Zabowski. Big up. I'm going to do a personal thank you to Tony Buck, who hooked me up with a couple of Chaos phone cards missing from my collection, and big up same to Troy Hudson, who did the same. And I believe Troy completed my collection. I was looking for a particular one. And I want to thank everybody who's just excited about what we do and super active in the culture. Carmen Sakara, Haley, thank you so much for being so active and fun. And thanks to everybody in the culture who kind of get what we're about. This isn't serious. It's all ridiculous. We're having fun. The world out there is serious and frankly disappointing. So why don't we all just kind of come in here and have a good time together and make this a fun, ideal place. So in conclusion, if you're not doing anything, February 25, 26, 27, make it on out to Swornfest. I guarantee you it'll be a life-changing experience. So in conclusion, I would like to say thank you so much for attending Beer with Brian, the inaugural edition where I drank water. You've been great. I've been Brian Pulido. Talk to you soon.
Swarmfest, Swarmfest, Swarmfest. Swarmfest, the global gathering for Coffin Comics Feed and the Swarm, featuring exclusive parties, artists, signings, commissions, panels, beer, food, coffee, alcohol, tours of HQV2, trading posts, CGC, friendship, community, camaraderie, shenanigans, insanity, and more.
Plan ahead. Be there.
Tickets and details on sale now at coffincomics.net/Swarmfest.
Presented by Coffin Comics. Swarmfest, Swarmfest, Swarmfest.
February 25th through 27th, 2022, Mesa, Arizona, USA.
Swarm.